Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.
Hello and welcome to Nirmal, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Dadia. We have with us Kamal, Nandi, business head and EVP at Godrej Appliances, joining us on the show. Welcome to the show, Kamal, and it's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to have you.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure is all ours. Kamal, my first question coming to you is overall, if you see with regards to COVID, no one really anticipated this kind of an impact across sectors, across economies, across businesses, and no one has been left unscratched. If you could just help us understand what has been your, the trend that you've picked up so far with the impact it started to have from March to recovery now, especially for the consumption sector as a whole.
So I guess at the beginning of the pandemic, the challenges I think everybody had was to deal with how do they get the essentials in their homes, and therefore I think focus was more on food and medical,
Mm,
and all consumption patterns that we saw was largely coming out from these sectors. But as I think we got into the lockdown and the lockdown kept on getting extended, I think we saw consumption trends changing and some of the discretionary products like appliances moving towards essentials. And just to share the an example, when we are not allowing any outsider to come home, given the fear that it might bring along with or he or she can bring along with them virus in the inside the house. So therefore, how do we handle the you know challenges that we are facing while working from home and work from home, work together?
mm,
I think that drove the necessity to get in appliances or to buy appliances in order to substitute domestic help. And therefore, we saw the consumption of appliances going up, and a sector which was at the bottom three in terms of consumption hierarchy at the beginning of COVID actually moved into the top three by July, August. So that's how I think we saw a complete change in consumption trends on sectors and specifically appliance.
right. And especially on the consumption side, if you talk about the durables and the appliance side, what happened is because people were staying at home, as you mentioned, the quantum of usage has increased as well. And I think the replacement is something which everyone really realized quickly, because I think people like you and me who've probably not been at home throughout the day have then realized that these are few of the appliances which actually need a replacement once you start actually using them. Now, with this, overall, how has the impact been on your business as a whole?
So let me talk about broad what is the impact on the
Oh,
industry. So the initial months with lockdown, of course, the industry have suffered a huge setback, given that we could not open up our outlets to sell. E-commerce were also not operating in the first couple of months. Plants were shut for first couple of months. So we lost out huge, you know, revenue in the first quarter, and that has impacted. And generally, in our industry, which is the appliance industry, the first quarter is the largest quarter. It consumes about 36% of overall sale for the
mm,
entire year. And having lost out heavily there, it was extremely challenging for the industry. So as things started opening up, we saw consumptions going up, and I think the trend that I talked about drove higher consumption than what we expected.
Wow.
And as a result, I think industry very quickly saw moving towards a growth trajectory from a huge degrowth phase, which was in quarter one.
Hmm.
And from August onwards, I think we saw growth trajectory in the industry and sustained till November so far.
Right. So, Kamal, in fact, a lot of appliance companies were struggling to keep up with the demand. Was it similar for you as well?
So at the initial phase, yes, I think we never anticipated that a category which was at the bottom three on consumption hierarchy will move to the top three
Hmm.
so soon. Okay, so that was a surprise by everybody, and as a result, there were challenges initially for initially to meet the demand. The best part was, the industry when it went into lockdown, it carried huge stocks. So because we were entering summer when we went into lockdown, and because 80% of our categories are cooling categories, so when we entered summer, there was huge stock at brand manufacturers level, huge stock at warehouses, and huge stock at trade or dealer level.
Hmm.
So when they went into lockdown, when we all went into lockdown, I think all these three vertical, the plants, the warehouses, and the dealers carried huge stocks. And when things opened up, even though we were not allowed or we were not able to run manufacturing plants at full capacity, given the stocks available with dealers and the warehouses, I think we were able to meet the first 2 months demand very easily.
Correct.
And in that 2 months, I think we have, as an industry, been able to organize the necessary inputs for the plants and run the plant after that as per the required capacity.
Right. So, with that, with that boost in demand that we saw, especially, and from September to now, the kind of recovery that we've seen, do you think that's something which is sustainable in terms of demand?
So I think, if you look at the demand, how is it panning out vis-a-vis the rural and the urban? So in the rural, I think it is purely the economy that is driving consumption. Whereas in the urban, it is the change in consumption pattern which is driving demand or consumption. So urban is largely led by the new trend that we are seeing, where appliances become essential, whereas rural is purely based on economy.
Hmm.
So rural demand going forward will depend upon how we are seeing the economy growing, or how we are seeing the weather supporting agriculture economy or not. If we see a good agricultural economy, we will see demand sustained in the rural sector for sure. As far as the urban sector is concerned, or our urban market is concerned, we definitely see the demand to be sustained, because I think this whole trend
Hmm.
of considering appliance as an essential product will remain, because as of now, there has been, challenges on the disposable income by consumers. So as and when disposable income goes up, consumers who have not yet consumed appliances in urban to substitute domestic help will go in for those consumptions.
Hmm.
And also, I think with having gone through the experience of lockdown and pandemic, I think we all will be now better prepared as consumers to face this situation in future. And therefore, first of all, equip ourselves at home so that we are not dependent on anybody for any of the home chores. So we can do it ourselves. So a dishwasher at home, a washing machine at home, a large size refrigerator at home, a microwave at home are something that becomes essential. And therefore I think you will see a sustained demand in this sector.
Right. And then with this, what were the kind of challenges you faced with regards to sales as well as distribution, and anything of that sort which has continued right now as well on the manufacturing front as well, say in terms of imports of some raw material or anything on that front?
So at the initial stage, we all know that you know there were challenges in terms of raw material. There were challenges in terms of logistics. There were challenges in terms of supplies from our suppliers, because I think at the initial stage
Mm,
we have seen that there were many areas who were falling under containment zones and where no activities were allowed. And therefore, even if your plant was operating, if the raw materials are not coming in, if the components are not coming in from suppliers, if there are restrictions on, if there are restrictions on, movement of vessels on sea, I think all those had created a little bit of challenge initially, on the supply chain side. Also on the front end in your, sales outlet, given the containment zone where you know were high initially, and then of course it fluctuated. Sometimes it opened up, sometimes it closed down. So there were a lot of uncertainty initially. I think those have got evened out quite a lot now.
mm,
So it is more predictable now in terms of the entire supply chain. And I think the challenge now that we are facing is very different. And I think it is not only our sector. The challenge that we are facing now is across sector,
mm.
and that's about the steep commodity price hike that is happening. So this is going to put a huge challenge in terms of both availability and on the overall input cost, and therefore price to consumers, and that might impact demand.
Right. So, as a trend, are you expecting the price to consumers to increase not only for your brand but across the category, say in the next 2 to 3 months?
I think given the type of commodity price hike that we are experiencing, given the type of short supply that we are experiencing,
Mm,
if this continues, I think there is steep price increase which is going to happen in our sector, and I believe it will impact other sectors also, because commodity is something that goes into all sectors, and the price hike is very steep, to the extent of 12 to 15%, and
mm.
that might impact demand in a very big way going forward in fourth quarter.
Right. And Kamal, another aspect is that retailers are worrying right now that there could be a possibility of a slump in demand that could come in after the new year. Now, if that happens, do you think a price hike which brands and companies will be willing to take, that's something that they will have to absorb if there is a demand slump already?
See, first of all, I don't see a reason for demand slump other than the price hike impact.
Hmm, okay.
If the prices go up by 10% or 12%, this will impact demand.
Hmm,
There are no other indicators or factors which are going to say that that will impact demand, because your economic activities are increasing,
hmm.
your GDP is bouncing back, your disposable income of consumers are going up, jobs creations are happening. So I don't see any economic factors which is indicating that there will be slump in demand,
Hmm.
except for the fact that prices are going up on commodities and input cost is going up. As a result, your output cost or your price to consumers will go up. That might impact demand. I don't see any other reason apart from this.
Right. And overall, with regards to advertising and marketing as well, a lot of consumption brands did a smart thing by really doing their ad spends, marketing spends during this phase, say between March to July, August, when people were refraining from spending because they got really good rates in terms of their spends. And the maximum benefit is what they garnered out of it. What is your strategy, and what was your strategy with regards to advertising and marketing from here on?
See, I think for any marketeer, it is always good to be present where the consumers are
Mm,
viewing you, right? So therefore, I think we all know that during the pandemic, digital consumption went up drastically, and digital search in our industry went to as high as some 70 odd percent. So if that be so, I think it is but natural for marketeers to invest on digital medias rather than spending on XYZ medias where they are offering a better rate. I think that has been the focus, and that has been the strategies of expenditure on marketing. Focus more on digital because consumers are searching digital. Consumers are buying digital.
right. And very lastly, Kamal, do you think the second half of FY21 will be better than the first half? And do you think uh, a consumption sector like yours will be able to match the numbers that we clocked in FY20?
So see, the first half for sure will be better than FY20 first half because FY20 first half saw pandemic,
Correct.
right? So FY21 first half will be much better. Yeah.
Hmm.
The second half is something that we'll have to wait and watch as to how the whole economy pans out, how we see the agriculture economy panning out. I think everything will depend on that. So as of now, it is very difficult to say whether the second half will be better than this year's second half. But first half definitely will be better than this year's first half.
Right. And any expansion plans on the anvil for Godrej Appliances?
A lot of plans, and we'll share as and when we actually are ready to share with all of you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Right. Thanks a lot, Kamal. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your views. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as well and hoping to get you back soon. Again, stay safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show, and stay safe too. Thanks a lot.